Welcome to the meeting of the Environment Committee for Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. Called this meeting to order. The first thing we need to take care of is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or adaptations to the agenda that anyone would like to make?
No, I'll move the agenda.
We have,
support.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda has been moved. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. If there were any changes or corrections to the minutes from last time. Hearing none,
I move approval, Madam Chair.
we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes have been approved. The first business item is 2018-256, and it's about Metro Plant Solids Management. And Renee Heflin is going, not Renee, Janine is going to.
Madam Chair, members of the council, I think Renee has been detained. I know she was planning to be back here, so I'm here.
Detained.
Criminal.
Yeah,
We
that
can
sounds
always
like
count on
Right. So we'll go ahead. This is the business item for the Metro Plant Solids Management Facility Plan. The Solids Management Facility Plans recommends adding a fourth incinerator at the Metro plant, followed by renewal of the existing 3 incinerators to preserve existing wastewater treatment plant infrastructure and to serve regional population growth through the year 2050. You know, as we had shared with you during a couple of committee agenda meetings, is that in order for us to have the capacity necessary to do the renewal projects on the existing 3, we need to add capacity by adding a fourth incinerator, plus we also need it for regional growth. So our estimated project cost is $180 million. And on the slide, it shows our planning started back in 2015. We would like to start the design of the fourth incinerator as well as the permitting process. In 2019, we anticipate that's a 2-year project. And then begin construction of the fourth incinerator 2021, wrap that up by 2024, and then each year after that we will engage in a renewal process of the existing 3 incinerators. Our Thrive outcomes for this project supports efforts to maintain the region's wastewater treatment system as well as sustainability. The work supports efforts to invest in the region's wastewater system so that it can be operated in an effective and efficient way. We had a what I would characterize a very robust public outreach program. Our stakeholders and customers include local governments. So we had a number of, we talked about this topic at our customer budget forums. We also hosted a tour of the Metro plant that was attended by many of our customer communities as well as representatives from the League of Minnesota Cities and Metro Cities. We met with elected officials, including the staff and elected officials from the City of St. Paul, City of South St. Paul. We also met with the Ramsey County Commissioner's Office. We met with a number of regulatory agencies, including the MPCA. We had meetings with neighborhood and community organizations. We hosted an open house with the businesses along Childs Road, and we also actively engaged our environmental advocacy groups. So down below is a list of several of the key meetings that we had in which we engaged engaged in public outreach. So our public hearing, we had a public hearing. The legal notice and facility plan was posted on July 29th. We had a public hearing on August 30th at the Wellstone Center in St. Paul. Our public comment period ran from July 29th through September 10th, 2018. We received comments from 5 individuals, and those comments were included in your packet. The staff responded to all of the comments and as a result recommend no changes to the draft facility plan. So with that, staff would recommend that the council adopt the Metro Plant Solids Management Improvement Facility Plan, which is MCS Project 806210 by formal council resolution, and the council resolution is also in your packet. I'm old school. I keep thinking of paper packets as opposed to on your iPad, excuse me.
Are there questions from the committee?
Need a motion?
Second.
Let me make sure there's no comments. I have a question for you, Janine. The $180 million,
Yes.
does that include the renovation of the other incinerators after the first one is, or the new one is put in place?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the council, yes, it does. We anticipate a budget for the construction of the fourth to be $150 million, and then $30 million for renewal of the existing facilities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Mr. Melander has made a motion and somebody seconded it. I heard it. For Councilmember McCarthy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Janine. Thanks for stepping in. Tell Renee that we miss her. The next item on the agenda is 2018-257, intergovernmental agreements with the City of Loretto, Independence, and Medina. And
Yes.
our two presenters are here. So
Yes.
We are.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. As you mentioned, today's item requests that the Metropolitan Council authorize its regional administrator to negotiate and execute inter-community agreements with the cities of Loretto, Independence, and Medina to provide wastewater services to the city of Loretto. Today's presentation will actually be a team effort here. I'll start off the presentation by giving a little bit of project background, which led to the need to enter into these agreements to cover added local costs to implement an interim service plan to provide service to Loretto. And then Karen will wrap up the presentation by reviewing the specific agreements with each of the three communities involved.
thank you.
The Regional Wastewater System Plan, as summarized in the 2040 Water Resources Plan, reflects a revision from the previous Water Resources Management Policy Plan, or the 2030 Plan, as to how Southwest Corcoran, Northwest Medina, and the City of Loretto are to be served with regional wastewater services long term. The revision reflects a redirect of service area away from the Metro plant, which in this map here is depicted by the green area, to the Blue Lake Wastewater Treatment Plant service area, which on this map is depicted in blue. You may recall that last month I summarized this change in the long-term service plan when I presented the Medina Comprehensive Sewer Plan. The change in the system plan was made to recognize the long-term capacity limits in the Elm Creek Interceptor and to acknowledge the need to provide regional wastewater services to the city of Loretto. The city currently owns and operates a wastewater treatment facility and provides its own service. However, due to a new Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's permit requirements, the city can no longer provide service on its own under the new permit, and requested service through the regional system by December 31st, 2020, at which time their existing discharge permit will expire. Reviewing projected growth forecast as reflected in the surrounding community comprehensive sewer plans, there is little to moderate growth projected to occur in the areas to be served, and there is very little additional flow. It is not practical from a cost or operational perspective to invest in regional infrastructure that is sized to provide capacity for the long-term service that won't be needed for decades. The estimated cost for building the ultimate long-term regional system is between $40 and $50 million. And that system would provide service, again, for Loretto, the area around Loretto that's in Medina, and areas of Corcoran. However, through an existing local agreement, the City of Medina provides service to Independence and Greenfield through Independence through what is locally known as the Tri-City Agreement and through a local collection system owned and operated by the City of Medina and Independence. The local system is in the vicinity of Loretto's wastewater treatment plant. This exhibit identifies facilities that are used to provide service to Medina and Independence, and again, Greenfield through Independence. So on this map, I'll go through the screening as I did last time to identify that the City of Independence system is located along County 11 here, and all the flow gets discharged to a lift station that's owned and operated by the City of Independence. From the lift station, that flow is pumped through a force main along County 11 and then south through County 19 to a facility, a lift station that's owned and operated by the City of Medina. From that point, Medina then takes that flow and adds additional flow from an area within Medina that's served in this area, and then pumps that through a force main, through a combination force main and gravity system where the flow eventually gets to Council's lift station L63. Now on this map, the City of Loretto's existing treatment plant is located in this general vicinity, and Loretto's plan is to phase out their wastewater treatment plant, build a force main, and then connect that force main into the Independence force main system, which then again, as I described, pumps it south and eventually to L63. There was a system capacity analysis that was performed on the local system to determine if there was available capacity in the local system that Medina and Independence owns and operates. The study found that there is sufficient capacity in that local system with minor improvements to the two lift stations that I noted, the one in Independence and Medina. If there's a need for a pipe in this general area here to provide some additional capacity, then there's also a need to make some minor lift station improvements at our facility at L63, which is located in Maple Plain. The estimated cost for these interim improvements is $4.5 million, and again, these interim improvements would defer the long-term system improvements, which we've estimated to be between $40 and $50 million. And these interim improvements would be adequate to provide service for at least a 20-year period of time. However, using local infrastructure to provide service to Loretto without some kind of reimbursement for the added costs to Medina and Independence was somewhat problematic. Therefore, a plan was devised by the council to enter into intercommunity agreements with each affected community that would reimburse the communities for the added costs that providing service to Loretto would cause to those two communities. These agreements will also include property set-asides and cooperative construction reimbursements, which Karen will now go over.
Thank you, Kyle. So as Kyle mentioned, in order to implement this interim plan to serve the City of Loretto, 3 intergovernmental agreements are required. The first agreement is with the City of Loretto, whose facilities are shown in red. This would describe the responsibilities of the city to construct those facilities that Kyle described, a lift station and force main. They'd also be constructing a Met Council meter as part of their project, so this agreement include reimbursement for that construction. And as he also mentioned, we'll be setting aside land, Loretto will be setting aside land for this future regional lift station. The next agreement is with the City of Independence, whose facilities are shown in green. They'd be reimbursed for operation and maintenance costs up to 20 years. It would describe the installation of a Met Council meter, and that meter is shown in yellow toward the north end of the page. And the agreement ends once a regional system is in place or a determination that the regional system is no longer needed. And the final agreement is with the City of Medina, whose system is shown in blue. Met Council will install approximately 2,000 linear feet of pipe
That's shown in yellow. That's the pinch point in the Medina system that's needed to be upsized in order to accommodate Loretto's flows. And just as in Independence, the agreement ends once the regional system is in place or there's a determination that the regional system is no longer needed. So at the end of the day, Met Council will own and operate a meter in Independence. In Loretto, we'll be reimbursing the cities of Independence and Medina for operational maintenance costs associated with the facilities to serve Loretto's flows, and we'll be upsizing a short segment of pipe. The project schedule for this work is to wrap up our intergovernmental agreements in early 2019. We've already started design, and that will be wrapping up also in 2019, with construction beginning in late 2019 going into 2020, so that Loretto will have service by December 2020. Looking at this business item through the Thrive lens, Thrive outcomes of stewardship. Our public financial resources will be invested efficiently and effectively by timing our infrastructure investments when needed. Prosperity, we're protecting our natural resources and investing in infrastructure needed for economic competitiveness. And sustainability, by providing and preserving our wastewater infrastructure to maintain and support our region's well-being over the long term. So the proposed action in front of you today is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes its regional administrator to negotiate and execute intergovernmental agreements with the cities of Loretto, Independence, Medina, to provide wastewater service to the city of Loretto. And at this time, we'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Karen and Kyle. Questions, concerns? Councilmember Lutovsky.
Thank you. I'm wondering what happened to Loretto's wastewater system that made it not able to get the permit, and then therefore we had to take care of their waste.
Sure. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, in its reissuance of the city's wastewater permit, identified that Lake Independence is impaired for phosphorus. So the PCA, recognizing that there was a long-term plan to serve Loretto through the regional system, decided to basically put a zero phosphorus limit on the new treatment facility, which would have been technically difficult and too cost prohibitive for the city to build a plant at that level of standard. So that is what prompted the city to come in with a request to connect to the regional system, which really does reflect an acceleration of when we originally, under the previous wastewater plan, had expected them to come in with a request.
So they were putting the water into Lake Independence?
They were, yeah. The discharge actually goes through a ditch, and it goes through one lake, Lake Spurgeon, and then it's like Half Moon Lake, and eventually finds its way to Lake Independence. But the impaired water designation was made to Lake Independence.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karen and Kyle, are these agreements in line with what we normally have done in the past with other cities with similar situations?
Madam Chair and Councilmember McCarthy, this is a unique situation, but certainly historically we have worked with other communities as they've come online with the Metropolitan Council's overall system. Certainly the construction cooperative agreement with the city of Loretto is in line with what we have done with other agencies. And in this case, it is a little unusual, but it does make some sense with leasing pipe capacity and paying for operations and maintenance costs in order to defer the $40 to $50 million construction costs 20 years.
Councilman McCarthy.
And Kyle had mentioned that, currently right now the requested amount is 4,500, 4,500,000, but he also said that long term it would be up in the levels of 40 and 50 million. Now, what would that entail and why is it so high?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilmember McCarthy. As we indicated, the $4.5 million interim project includes small minor upgrades to the City of Independence's lift station, Medina's lift station, short little section of pipe here, and some improvements to L63R facility. So that's the $4.5 million set of improvements, which will provide service to Loretto for at least the next 20 years because there is very little growth that's really anticipated in this general service area. The long-term plan recognizes that after 20 years, this area of Corcoran is likely to develop. This area here that's in Medina but surrounds Loretto is also expected to develop. So the long-term, try to do this in the right direction, the long-term infrastructure improvements will include to accommodate those areas that I identified as future growth areas will include additional improvements to L63 to make it larger, a pipe or a series of pipes that will take flow from a central collection point in close proximity to this proposed Loretto lift station. This would be a regional lift station, and then convey the flow to a point somewhere in here where the council will have another lift station and pump flow through a series of pipes that would basically connect to the one section of pipe that we are putting in this project and continue with piping to get all the way to L63. So it's a fairly significant increase in regional investment, but we're deferring that until the growth actually materializes and time that regional investment when needed. So it's a fairly significant infrastructure.
Councilmember McCarthy.
And one last question. So in your opinion, having worked with this for a very long time, and is this a reasonable investment for us? Does the cost, how can I say, I know there's benefits to it, but is the cost reasonable in comparison to what we do for other cities within the region?
Madam Chair, Councilmember McCarthy, in terms of the total investment and providing regional service to one of the communities in the council's jurisdiction, it is a relatively inexpensive investment to provide service to Loretto. It does provide some added capacity to accommodate some growth that's expected to occur. It's not just $4.5 million to provide service to Loretto and no one else. There's additional capacity in there to accommodate growth that could otherwise not be accommodated through the local system. So compared to the $40 to $50 million, it's a wise use of regional investment.
Are there other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
I would move adoption, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Kyle and Karen.
Thank you.
And that moves us to the information portion of this meeting, and Sam Paskey is going to walk us through Clean Water Fund framework. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Sam Paskey, Assistant General Manager for one of our planning functions around water supply, and this pertains to that function. If you have a document in front of you, it's called Clean Water Fund Framework. That was in our handouts. That's the document I will be referring to. I crafted 6 articulate points while I was sitting there. And you can stop me anytime when they cease to be articulate. And our chair may help me, as you'll see. She has a role in this document as does the Met Council and many others. So this is an information item really to bring a guiding framework to your attention and present an opportunity to provide some feedback on the words in this document that's currently available, and I'll explain the context for that. The Met Council requests clean water funds for every biennium. Those funds have been used for water supply planning and some water efficiency grants that have come before this committee in the past. In the past, the use of those funds has been guided by several state frameworks to ensure that clean water funds are appropriated for the right things in the right ways, and follow the right kind of transparent and legitimate process. That process includes the Clean Water Council, which is appointed by the governor, and our chair, Sandy Romo, serves on that council as a non-voting member, along with many other agencies and institutions and stakeholder groups. There is also an interagency coordination team composed of assistant commissioners working for state agencies that collaborate and coordinate the programs that are funded by clean water funds, or many of those programs. In order to have a better working relationship between those groups, many documents have been produced over the years, like a clean water roadmap, and goals and mission and objectives. This document is the most recent iteration, and it really consolidates on the back a list of resources that have been developed over the years. For instance, some EQB reports and Clean Water Council outputs. Consolidates into one page what we're trying to do in the state of Minnesota at a policy and at practical levels to manage our water sustainably. Surface water and drinking water is the focus of this framework. So there are 4 high-level objectives. For example, groundwater is clean and available. Surface waters are swimmable and fishable. There's nothing new in here. The purpose of this document was to provide a foundation and a basis for, number one, the budget that is currently being developed of around $100 million for the 2020 and 2021 biennium to fund clean water fund programs, so that there is a common framework to say what are these dollars doing. In the past, some of the questions about how are these dollars being used effectively have focused on, are they being used for implementation work or research or what? And the groups, the Clean Water Council and the Interagency Coordination Team thought it'd be better to have overarching goals, that we could say this money will improve 2 out of these 3 goals. And so there was a collaborative process among these groups to develop this guiding framework, which now is under review by the agencies and the Clean Water Council, and it will be, I guess, adopted, if you will, by the Clean Water Council and then used by all the stakeholders as a directional document to articulate what are the benefits of the programs that we're recommending for budgeting and then finally appropriation. So I'll pause there, and then I'll explain the ask.
Committee members, I sit on that council, as Sam said, and I've been there 8 years, and over those, the council, the Clean Water Council has been operating with dollars for over 10 years now. And over the years, the budget, and I should have brought a sample of it for you, comes out on a sheet like this, and it's about 6 or 8 pages, and it goes down project by project by project, very specific about where certain monies are being allocated. And usually in the past it had been organized by, well, the MPCA gets this amount for all of these projects, and the Bowser gets this amount for all of these projects. And for the general public, whose money it is, it seems very obscure. You know, how does this get us where we want to go? there was a time where there was, especially at the legislature, there was a lot of discussion about, well, not enough money is getting to the ground where implementation and projects happen. And then there's other groups who want the Clean Water Council to operate more like the Lessard Sam's, what is the rest of their title? The land side of it, of the conservation, which is definitely project by project, whereas Clean Water Council is pretty much processes because of the way water works. You can't just say, I'm going to do this little thing and expect to affect everything else. So there's a lot of confusion about, or questions about, how well is this money being used. This framework puts it down to the practical outcomes that we're looking for. So now when you see the budget, you will see goal 1. Well, no, I guess we are going to organize it by projects, but then across the way, we indicate which of the objectives that particular project meets. So it makes it much easier for us to explain to the public how their money is being spent. I think this puts it in layman's language, and it puts it in relation to the reasons people voted for the Clean Water Legacy. Is there anything else I should add?
Well, maybe I'll just, you covered 4 of the 6 points for me, so thank you.
Oh, wow. We didn't plan that.
And there's 2 to go. One is, Madam Chair and members of the committee, the council has asked for $2 million from the Clean Water Fund, as it has in prior bienniums, for water supply planning activities that support the needs of the communities of the region, and their collaborations around sustainable water supply work. And also $1 million for water efficiency grants for the communities that are interested in pursuing grant programs to incentivize water conservation, is one way to put it. So the council has an ask of the Clean Water Funds. This framework will be used to characterize our ask, because all of the Clean Water Fund budget requests are using this framework. So while it isn't a council document, we'll be using it as part of the adopted process through the Clean Water Council and the governor's budgeting process into the legislation that will then be drafted, and we'll get what we get. So the purpose of bringing this in front of you today as an information item is to inform you that this document is still draft. If there are any words that we can't live with, or we want to inform something that has been missed, we have an opportunity to provide that to the working group for consideration. But this document won't come back to us for any other approvals. It will be brought in front of the Clean Water Council and, I guess, adopted. I'm trying to find the right word. I'm not sure what process the Clean Water Council will use, but they'll say, let's use this tool to characterize our budget recommendation to the governor and then finally the legislature. So the ask then would be, if you see anything in here you would want to elevate as an input to the group of agency and Clean Water Council folks who have worked to craft this, you can send those to me or to Lisa, and we'll make sure that they're translated up into that process while it's still available before it's finalized and then put in front of the Clean Water Council. That
Any
completes.
questions or comments from the committee? Councilmember Latowski.
Thank you. So this isn't necessarily priorities, but it tries to capture everything that's been said about the Clean Water Fund. But I'm wondering, is there something that's not on here that you have to say no to because you want to make sure to focus on these things?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Latowski, excellent question. You nailed it. This list is not being used to rank investment opportunities or prioritize program areas. It is only being used to clarify what some of the programs, for example, CREP, is a program, and then you can unpack that into what CREP means, or some other names that are kind of broad brand names, and the public wouldn't know what does CREP do. Well, by tying it to these outcomes, that it's just informative. There is a decision to not prioritize like that.
Thank you.
Did you have any comments on this? Anything else, council members?
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.
It was quick and efficient. Thank you very much, Sam. So, the general manager has nothing to report. Is that what I heard?
Really, all I have is a request, and I think I've made it previously. It's already October, just around the corner, and November and December tend to be a one-meeting month. So your 8 years is rapidly coming to a close, and I just want to, again, invite you to let me know if there's anything you'd like, an informational item, something that you made a decision on earlier in your time, and you'd like to hear how things have proceeded or the status of things. We'd love to. If you've got an interest in hearing about something, let us know, and we'll get an information item together for you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the whole? If not, thank you, Lisa. We are adjourned.